Welcome to the mental health map. So this is something that I'm really excited about sharing with you because I think when it comes to physical exercise, everybody associates activity to being good for our mental health. But we never get much education about the deeper levels of how to make physical activity great for our mindset, great for our mental health, and how sometimes it goes wrong. And that's something that we've seen in the fitness industry for sure, when there's a lot of social pressures and trends being thrown around, and people don't necessarily identify how to use exercise to feel better in themselves. And that's partly identifying what's important to them, their own values. But what I'm going to talk to you guys about tonight is looking at a lot of the evidence we've looked at over the last couple of years, especially with putting together the dose health method, in what different types of exercise are best for different types of challenges with mental health, or just low self-esteem, or feeling vulnerable, or having no energy, or having a real lack of focus, and things like brain fog and stuff like that. So obviously we'll talk about the really nasty stuff, depression, anxiety, addiction, and how we can use physical activity to certainly help that. And as a wider system, the dose health method has really helped us help a lot of different types of people take back a little bit of that positive energy for life, and see how they can use physical activity as part of that more kind of holistic approach to better health, better mental health, and better hormonal health. So it feels like we've really started to connect a lot of dots that, as a personal trainer, I've gone on personal training diplomas, done lots of studying, and nobody taught me this stuff. And it feels really relevant because we're living in a society that, in terms of mental health, is having a lot more struggles now than maybe we've seen in historic kind of generations and stuff like that, where kind of have less distractions. And I think for all the things I'm going to talk about tonight, convenience and convenience of fast food and social media and things that give us dopamine hits very quickly, fundamentally are robbing you of your health. But to bring the focus to mental health and the mental health map, so this is that idea of us giving you a bit of like a kind of menu of mental health challenges and different kinds of low points in terms of mood, and maybe a best approach to what type of exercise to improve your mood. And that's what we want with exercise, is when you start to enjoy consistency, because no matter what mood you're in, how bad you feel, you start to kind of give yourself a guarantee that your exercise is going to make you feel better. And I think that starts with a few basic concepts of what we built into the mental health map system when we coach people now. And so the first bit is looking at kind of quantity and quality. When we look at exercise prescription, the questions often when we're kind of writing programs is, how many reps do I need to do? What weight should I be lifting? How many sets should I be doing? How many times a week should I do my workout? How far do I run? How many runs do I do? So all these numbers relate to quantity, And when we start to look at quality, it kind of changes those questions. So why are you going to exercise? Who are you going to exercise with? Where are you going to exercise? What type of exercise are you going to do, rather than how much? And I think the first part of comparing quality to quantity as a priority is often quantity really drives you towards comparisons against other people. How many reps did I do compared to the next person? How much weight did I lift compared to that person? How far did I run compared to them? And comparison, we know, sucks. Comparison is the thief of joy, right? So the nice thing about when we start thinking about quality is that's quality to me, my values, what's important to me in my exercise. And if we start to kind of prioritize that over and above the trends and different styles of exercise that I guess we get influenced towards, manipulated towards, it becomes a lot easier to enjoy the exercise that I do. So I think quality over quantity is a pretty basic idea, but actually it's lost a lot in the fitness industry. And when we know that in no way does work capacity, the amount of exercise you do, correlate to better mental health. So that's a really important point, right? The more exercise I do doesn't necessarily improve my mental health, okay? All of the studies show that if you do physical activity of any kind for 15 minutes, that's when we start to see improvements in our mental health. And that's a relatively broad study that was done. But at the same time, it's important that we realize that doing more exercise will not make you feel better. So for example, in the dose health method, we talk about how the modern world kind of puts us in a deficit of all these really important hormones, neurotransmitters, so dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. Now, when all of them are in a deficit, you're normally feeling quite low motivation, struggling with depression, anxiety, addiction. And then what happens is sometimes people find physical activity. So physical activity, it's what's going to impact our endorphins. And what are endorphins? They are painkillers, they're stress killers. So all of a sudden, all of that stress, all that pain, all those negative kind of emotions that you're feeling, when you find exercise, you feel better. You know, that painkiller, endorphins, they're gonna kind of take away some of that stress and things like that. So what do most people do, especially if their behavior and kind of that hormone balance is putting them in a situation where they're fundamentally addicts, they're very vulnerable to addictive behavior. What do they get addicted to? Exercise. And what happens next is they do more and more and more and more exercise because they want to take that stress, take that pain away consistently. But then sometimes exercise becomes a bit of a stress in itself because of that volume of work, right? There's only so much exercise that mere mortals, we're not professional athletes, we've got, jobs, families, all sorts of responsibilities to kind of build into our daily lives. We don't need more exercise to feel better all the time. If people are completely physically inactive, you're sedate, you've never found enjoyment in physical exercise, going to the gym, anything like that, we've got to find a way to get you to enjoy that. And it really doesn't matter what the physical activity is, but living a life of physical inactivity is impossible to manage your health. And in terms of not just being physically fit for life, but mentally fit for life. To enjoy good mental health on a platform of poor physical health is impossible. So as important as our mental health is, it comes after your physical health. So if we can start to build physical activity into your routine, regardless of what it is, if it's playing football with some friends, if it's going dancing, if it's going for a walk through the woods, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a gym, but we've got to find activities and hobbies that you're going to enjoy that allow you to manage all these different kind of energies, your emotional energy, your mental energy, and your physical energy. And so if we can get people to start to regularly be active for 15 minutes a day, then all of a sudden they feel better. And if we can get people feeling better, that's where we start to get into consistency. The key thing with the mental health map is this next kind of topic of autonomy. So autonomy is really making sure that you have the freedom of choice of what exercise you do. And I think this is one of the things we see in society. We just get it wrong really badly, really early on. So if we go back to school, didn't choose to be physically active. You were told to be physically active in a PE lesson. And when you get to kind of exercise, that's a lot of time in the UK, that's going to be football, that's going to be netball, that's going to be hockey, it's going to be kind of forms of athletics, cross country. And if you're not very good at those things, especially when almost our kind of physical ability is one of the real separators in terms of status, it's really hard to enjoy that part of your life, right? So, you turn up to your PE lesson and you're rubbish at football and it's a football game and you're not very fit. And all of a sudden, you're getting picked last, nobody's passing you the ball. It's a horrific experience. And I think part of that is you didn't necessarily have the autonomy. You didn't have the freedom of choice of what activities you're going to do. I've never met a child that doesn't like being physically active. So if you throw a bunch of kids into a playground, some of them are going to find that climbing frame and they're going to go straight up it, they're going to go upside down, they're going to have all sorts of fun. Some of them are going to find that ball and in a group, they're going to start kicking it around. Some people are going to find the hopscotch thing and play on that. You don't really have to teach kids how to be physically active. They're really just very good at working out how to play physically because it's a wicked part of them expressing their personalities. That's what exercise is. It's the physical expression of your personality. But then when it's forced, and especially in that social setting where we're really worried about our status, how am I going to be judged against other people? It's a really hard thing to enjoy. And to make autonomy work for you, one of the things we've got to give you is the capacity to enable you to enjoy different styles of exercise. So it's all good and well, me saying that if you feel really angry, one of the best things you can do is go for a steady state, not a particularly intense, super fast walk or jog through the woods or something like that. So we're in the South Buckinghamshire area. There's some lovely woodlands around us, and there's a physical side of being in nature, and especially around forests where we sort of boost our serotonin levels. And if I go out for a walk or a run at a steady pace where I'm not really trying to push myself, we're going to get those endorphins. I'm not going to create any kind of anxious, adrenal kind of energy. And all of a sudden, from feeling kind of angry or frustrated, you calm down, you get rid of some of your brain fog, you're going to sleep better. These are all the functions of serotonin. They even help us with our digestion, our recovery, our healing, our immune system, all that kind of stuff. If nobody's ever kind of taught you how to enjoy running through the woods, that just might not be an option to you, And so with autonomy, one of the most important things for us to look at with people's exercise is teaching them how to do different types of exercise, because then you've got choice. You get to choose what kind of workout you do. So maybe, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling really stressed. And what that does is it triggers my fight or flight system. So that's that hormonal system that gets all of my adrenals up. And if I don't use it, it's going to make me feel awful, right? In terms of my mental health. So if you feel overwhelmed, stressed, threatened, use that fight or flight and go and do like a really heavy strength session, right? So I'm going to go and have that fight with that barbell, with that dumbbell, with whatever apparatus you might use. Like up here, we would do kind of calisthenics training. I've got to lift all my body weight up. It becomes pretty physical, and it's a great way of using that almost negative energy for something really positive. And you're going to leave the room, you're going to feel calmer, and probably have that clarity of thought to go and deal with that stress, rather than just have it on the back burner as something that you're worrying about, that you're holding on to, that just starts weighing you down. Now, that only works if you know how to do calisthenics, if you know how to lift weights. And like, nobody cares how heavy the weights are. Heavy is relative to you, right? So if you've never done any strength training, you're going to use lighter weights than somebody that's been doing strength training for 10 years, but that doesn't matter. It's relative to you. Do something that feels heavy for you, and you're going to come out of that workout and feel less stressed. So the autonomy thing is almost in conflict with this idea of, I don't want to try anything new because I'm worried about how people are going to judge me. So I said earlier about in terms of, that social setting, my status is something that it's very hard to get away from worrying about how people perceive me. So if I have this idea that I'm going to go and try something new, learn a new skill where I'm not super confident, it's really hard to motivate yourself without some coaching. So within the Dose Health method, the reason we talk about coaching being really valuable in any setting, whether it's learning how to swim or whatever you want to learn about, maybe it's fitness, is making sure that you give yourself the best opportunity to succeed. Because if you're low on dopamine and you're low on oxytocin, what that deficit, those hormones kind of do is they make you feel like failing is the worst thing in the world. And it's a lack of resilience. And I hear that quite a lot when we talk about maybe younger generations and stuff like that. There's not enough resilience. And it's like, well, look at why. The modern world kills a lot of the hormones that give us our emotional resilience, our actionable energy to fail, get up and go again. And if we're in that situation where we're like low in these kind of hormones that give us that resilience, then give yourself the best chance of succeeding by building up that motivation to ask for help from somebody that's got the experience, who's going to give you the best chance to succeed. Because if you fail, you might get yourself into an even lower position where you don't want to try again. Like I was saying earlier, like the one thing you can never give up on is being physically active, because the other option is physical weakness and poor health, and not just physical health, but mental health for the rest of your life. So this is just stuff that's going to affect your daily quality of life, which is why it's so important to kind of talk about. So autonomy comes down to giving yourself the freedom of choice of what type of workout, what type of activity I'm going to do today. And if you look at the mental health map, you start to have this guide of, well, if I'm angry, I should do this kind of workout. If I'm sad, I should do this kind of workout. And within that list, it doesn't matter what you do, as long as I think it's kind of towards that style of exercise, whether it's a little bit slower paced, if it's a little bit harder and heavier. it starts to make sense when we get into kind of details of it. And if you want all this information, go onto the Wild Training website, go to the Dose Health Method page, fill in a little quiz. It will give you some information about where you're at right now. And we'll send you out a load of information about getting started with the Dose Health Method. And that starts with a 7-day challenge. And it's something we give everybody. It's amazing. It's helped a lot of people just start creating some better motivation, better energy in their life, and get started with moving away from some of these less healthy behaviors, these kind of addictions that we get from just modern life. So autonomy works, freedom of choice works really well if you've learned the skills. And this is where learning is a massive part of our motivation. So in terms of improving our dopamine, what's one of the easiest ways that I can get my dopamine levels up is to learn something. And we see that all the time in the gym, where people go, I don't know how to do that, and they learn it, and they come back, and they're really motivated. It becomes really exciting because they're doing something new, and the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of my benefit comes from 20% of my effort. So it doesn't take a lot of effort to actually get people to see some amazing results, especially if relatively you haven't done loads of exercise. It's so easy if we start to learn new skills, new styles of exercise, to see the benefits, to see our bodies respond. And then we get that reward of dopamine where we feel really good about ourselves. And what do we want to do when we start to kind of drop off those dopamine levels? We want to go back up. And now we found maybe some more positive ways of using dopamine to maintain a regular kind of pattern, a routine that's a little bit more positive for our health. So autonomy, really, really important. And now we get to talk about different styles of exercise. And so I think if we make it really simple in terms of looking at strength, stamina, and skill, that's a really nice snapshot. Now we can go into more detail and maybe a little bit more specific about different kinds of emotions. But if we start with strength, stamina, and skill, I think you guys will take away a really nice snapshot of how you can manage your exercise routines, your physical activity, to improve your mindset and find better mental health more consistently. Strength training, arguably one of the most important types of physical activity to build into your routine, because it just has so many benefits to it, for so many different people, guys, girls, young, old. And I think rather than thinking of it as just weightlifting, which is one really valuable type of strength training, there's so many ways of becoming stronger. And so rather than thinking of it as strength, think about it like force, right? And so then you start to open up things like sprinting and plyometric work and calisthenics. There's so many ways for us to challenge the amount of force, strength we can create through our muscles in lots of different ways. And what you'll always kind of associate strength training to being best at in terms of our mental health map is antidepressant. So there's ways that we can manipulate our strength training sessions to maximize that impact. But certainly strength training as a way of dealing with those low points in our mood is a really, really powerful way of doing so. And I think from a raw sense, it's just empowering, right? Like, can you flip the tire? Can you achieve the deadlift? Can you lift your body weight up? And when you first start exercising, the answer to those questions is normally no. And then if we persevere and you put that effort into, some consistent workouts with some coaching, get the technique right, all of a sudden you achieve these things and it makes you feel better about yourself. And that's something that transfers into lots of other aspects of your life. It builds character, it builds resilience, it builds your ability to have that hard graft and delayed gratification. I don't need an instant reward. And that's twofold then. I'm starting to get better at working towards these things that I really want to have that take time. And actually it reminds me that I don't need my phone for like an instant dopamine hit. I don't need to go onto Netflix and binge watch a load of stuff. I don't need to go impulse shopping based on the adverts that I get served and all that kind of stuff. So it starts to be exponentially really good for us if we can start to exercise in a way where you've got a really tangible result. Is the weight going up? Are you achieving movements with your body that you couldn't previously do? And it's the same for all styles of training, right? Whether you're doing long distance running and you think, I can't run to the end of the road without having to walk. And then within a few months, you've got your first 5K done. And then you've got your capacity to start to improve that day over day, week over week, month over month. And based on this conversation about the mental health map, this is where we want to encourage people to be diverse with their exercise and probably worry less about their performance because of what I said at the start. Your work capacity, your fitness level, the amount of work that you do in no way correlates to improving your mental health. Once we start exercising, arguably the best way of us maintaining a great mindset, great health, great mental health is variety, and real variety. So because of how our process of learning is so good for us, and it's what we're best at. We're masters of adaptation as a species, right? That's what we're great at. So as soon as we stop doing that, we don't feel as good about ourselves. So as hard as it is socially to turn up to an environment where you're worried about your status, you're not gonna be the best, you think you're gonna be the worst, and you've got no autonomy, you might not feel like you've got the choice of what you're gonna do, you've got no certainty about what you're gonna be asked to try, you don't know if you're gonna relate to the people in that environment, and you don't know if you're gonna be treated fairly, are you gonna be valued, and are you gonna be supported in this kind of community that you don't necessarily know. There's so many things socially that stop you. They just stop you in your tracks. You don't try. And again, physical activity is something we can't stop trying. We can't give up on being physically active because for every aspect of health and for the quality of your life, it's the most powerful intervention you've got. It's not the subscription to mushroom supplements. It's not the stuff that you're seeing online about celebrity programming. It's just being physically active more often. And the modern world, we don't have to be physically active. We don't have to be outside very much. Don't have to be around people very much. You can work from home. You can socialize from home. We're on social medias and all that stuff. We're not building kind of these relationships face to face anymore. And the physiological impact that has on our hormones is really bad, which I think is why we're in a bit of a crisis of not just physical health, but mental health. So strength training is super powerful for lots of different reasons. And it goes so far beyond antidepressant. There's lots of other reasons that strength training can be incredibly empowering, a very useful way of getting yourself out of a negative kind of mindset. And I think the results are so powerful so quickly, it becomes exciting, which is what exercise always has to be. It's gotta be fun, it's gotta be exciting. How do you make strength training even more effective? Talked about in terms of dopamine, amping that up, it's about learning or trying something different. So, if you're used to deadlifting with a neutral grip, try and take a double overhand grip, try and change the bar, use a hex bar or an axle. So just change something, challenge yourself in a new way, because overcoming a challenge is exponentially rewarding. It just helps you maintain that great mindset and that excitement for taking on a challenge and winning. That's what it's all about, right? Proving to ourselves that we can do more than we thought that was possible. In terms of oxytocin, this is where, and I'll talk about oxytocin in a little bit more detail later when we get into our DTS activities, which is the most powerful thing that I can share with you when it comes to improving your mental health through physical activity. But oxytocin is the social thing, right? So if I can exercise with somebody else that I value, that I can support, that I know values me, then all of a sudden it becomes a lot more than just a physical workout, and it's an outlet. It's where I get to dump a lot of my emotional stuff. I listen to the other person, and that support is so empowering. And it goes both ways. So me listening to my friend and kind of supporting them and being there for them, it's not just good for them, it's good for me. It's good for me to help them. And at the same time, me sharing some of my challenges and sharing some of my stresses, that's good for me and it's good for them. So when we talk about oxytocin, we talk about activities that are going to incorporate elements of talking, trusting, helping, sharing. All of these things require you to have that get up and action to do something with somebody else. And I think when we talk about the dose health method and how certainly oxytocin is normally in a deficit because of the modern world and how we're all living, it's really hard to action anything. So to fix oxytocin, without any exception, you need action. And when you've got low oxytocin, the last thing you want to do is action anything. You want to withdraw from life, right? You don't want change. You're so resilient to change. Change of environment, change of the people you're around, change of your own behavior. You might want to be healthy, but low oxytocin is going to stop you changing anything. So in that situation, and we've seen this for just years and years and years, coaching people, you have to help them, right? So either if I'm in this really low place, I need to ask somebody that I believe has a positive energy to help me. I need your help. I'm in a bad place. I can't find the energy, the motivation, the confidence to start being physically active around other people. But I feel like that's what I really need because I'm feeling low. I'm feeling like I'm struggling with depression. And the most powerful antidepressant in the world, bar none, is oxytocin. How do you get oxytocin? Being around other people. What happens when you have low oxytocin? You don't want to be around other people. So you need help. So you got to ask somebody to help. And if you've got a good friend, hopefully they recognize it anyway and they drag you kicking and screaming to an activity session. You're coming mountain biking with me. We're going to go and do a Brazilian jiu-jitsu session. We're going to go and do a workout. And you can hate me forever and we can never talk again, but you're coming. And when I've had those moments of intervention with some people that I know, they hate it until you've done it. And then they love it. And then they thank you. And then you hug. And then everything gets better. And it's just that start. And if you can get somebody to start and see that positive side of exercise, for a lot of people, they never stop because it becomes the thing that saved them. You know, it wasn't the mushroom subscription supplements. It was somebody helping them or them asking for help and taking action. You can't fix oxytocin on your sofa looking at your phone. You can if you get up and you start doing something with somebody else. And I think one of the things that's very hard nowadays is to ask people to help you. And I think it's misunderstood what gyms are or what I think gyms should be, which is a hub of support for its community. So this place is here so that everybody in our local area can come here and we're going to make them feel better. We're going to make sure they feel cared about, that they can care about other people in this environment and create that really enriching interaction socially where all these hormones start to improve. We never talk about it like that. We started to now because we realized how unaware people are of the kind of secondary benefits of exercise. We think of exercise as we think fat loss, build muscle, get fitter. It's the least important stuff. Like all of the people I know that love exercise, love it for none of those reasons. We do it consistently because it makes us feel better. Autonomy. What am I going to do today? I feel pretty tired. I had a very heavy workout on Monday. Had a really hectic time, start of the year in a gym, January. There's lots going on. It's very exciting. Some big announcements soon. But today, I'm thinking, I just want to move. I'm not even going to try and get fitter. Like I'm not going to push myself in any way today. I'm going to do some Indian club training. I'll do some flow work, get a little bit of a sweat on because I get all excited about that kind of stuff. But it's not going to be a hard workout. That autonomy, that freedom of choice only comes because I've practiced lots of different styles of exercise over the years. But the point is, if we shift our mindset from, I've got to do this workout because I'm trying to achieve this physical outcome, because I'm getting ready for this challenge, this competition, me and my friend are trying to do, a 200 kilogram deadlift. And we change that to, rather than the physical results of like losing weight, building muscle, and go, I'm going to work out because I want to feel better today. I feel like this today. I feel overwhelmed today. So I think I'm going to do this kind of workout because that will make me feel better today. And when you start thinking more about the present and how you can feel better today, well, if I do that today and I do that tomorrow and I do that the next day, and the only way that I look at my physical activity every day is that I'm trying to make myself the best version of me that day, you start to become much more consistent with your physical activity. And if you do that for 100 days, you're going to be healthy, you're going to look healthy, your mindset's going to be in a really, really positive place. And so the mental health map, hopefully, is going to be a tool that might just give you a different why. Right at the start, I was talking about, let's stop talking about quantity as much, which has no correlation to improving your mental health. The more I do, I don't put myself into a better state of mental health. 15 minutes a day, that's the challenge, right? And let's focus that 15 minutes on quality. The quality of my movement, where I'm exercising. Am I outdoors? Am I in a really positive environment, surrounded by people that support me? Am I surrounded by people that I like? Because that's going to completely transform how much I get out of my activity. And am I learning new things? Am I challenging myself to overcome different types of activities or learning new skills or things that excite me? Because we have to live with passion. Dopamine is so aligned to passion and inspiration. And I think, again, in the modern world, a lot of us are living without a lot of passion and inspiration in our lives. So this is where sometimes, again, we need an event, we need another person to inspire us to get excited about something. Because when we're excited about something, dopamine levels go through the roof, you feel amazing, you feel motivated, and that energy starts to transfer in lots of other aspects of your life, whether it's your relationships, whether it's your work. It's just a happier way of life and hopefully a better quality of life that you can enjoy consistently. So then, strength training. Next one, stamina training. This is where the work capacity thing becomes a challenge, because if you start to do long distance runs, triathlons, or a huge volume of kind of functional fitness kind of classes, the trends of things like CrossFit and High Rocks has moved towards a lot of people doing quite a lot of exercise kind of sessions, classes where they're doing quite fast running mixed with functional training kind of circuits and things like that. And they're brilliant. They're like amazing ways of getting healthier. But again, when we're these personalities, we've got low dopamine, low oxytocin, you're very vulnerable to addictive behaviors. And if you don't deal with those deficits, if you don't deal with the fact that your dopamine is low, your oxytocin is low, you're not moving away from an addiction, you're just changing what you're addicted to. And we see this a lot. And so then people become addicted to exercise. There's worse things to be addicted to. But eventually, overtraining syndrome and the fatigue, not just in terms of your body, but your head and your nervous system, nobody gets to outrun that. So whilst stamina training is amazing, you've got to kind of take it with that kind of word of caution about work capacity doesn't align to better mental health. I don't need to do more to feel better. And so where stamina fits in our mental health map is it's brilliant for if we're feeling emotionally or mentally stressed. And I think most people feel emotionally or mentally stressed. They're at capacity. And then we go and do these kind of aerobic or anaerobic stamina type sessions, whether it's a run for distance. You know, we've seen a rise of park run, 5K, amazing, into 10K, into a half marathon, into a marathon, into an ultra marathon. Yeah, that's amazing progression. Is a marathon or an ultra marathon good for your physical health? I think that's impossible to argue that it is. It's not. If you enjoy it, rock and roll. Add some variety into your exercise routine so that that's not the only thing you do. That way you get to enjoy your knees when you're 90, hopefully. But if we kind of look at that addiction model, you can see it, right? I was struggling with addiction. I was in this low place. I found running and it made me feel better. So what did I do? More running. Where's that addiction go? So now I've just moved my addiction into running. And then what happens when you can't run because your knee hurts or your hip hurts or your back hurts because you've run so far in a short amount of time? You can't exercise. And then that huge level of endorphins that you've been enjoying from your stamina-based training kind of systems is gone because you can't exercise anymore because you've injured yourself. And then the painkiller, the endorphins that was kind of helping you level all these other deficits out is gone, and you're going to feel probably in a really low place. So stamina training is amazing, and we know that VO2 max, so the maximum amount of oxygen your body can burn, is probably the most important thing when it comes to living a long time. So, you know, we look at all-cause mortality. A low VO2 max is one of the biggest risk factors to dying early from anything. It's worse than smoking, it's worse than diabetes, it's bad. So stamina training has to be part of your physical activity routine. There's a skill in finding a stamina-based training system that you enjoy. So if you find something you enjoy, amazing, use it. But use it in an intelligent way, remembering that increasing the amount of work that you do isn't necessarily putting you into a better state of physical health or a better state of mental health. And so the last one to talk about is skill. And skill in physical activity is the most valuable thing that I've ever found. And I think sometimes people struggle to define skill. So you can think about it as like coordination, you know, what you can do with your body. And I think we look at always inspiration from real world, right? Like real world examples. Who are a group of athletes, sports people that live long, healthy lives? And there was some recent research that came out that looked at racket sports players. And you think about like racket sports like tennis, and there's so many things to think about. So they're thinking about the movement and the position of the other player. They're thinking about the direction and the speed and the spin of the ball. And they're thinking about the angle and the movement of their racket on the end of their arm. And to do that, they've got to get themselves into the right position. So I've got to spin around and run backwards. I've got to move the racket across my midline. I've got to load my body in all these kind of different directions. And so there's a huge amount of skill there. You know, am I working in the sagittal, frontal, or transverse plane of movement? I'm all over the place. I am not just in a straight line. If we take cycling or running as an example, tennis is a much more multi-directional kind of sport. And then how am I loading my body? Am I bilaterally loaded? If you think about a squat or a deadlift, both sides of my body are loaded equally. Whereas if I'm playing tennis, I'm using my right hand and I'm mostly loaded on my right leg. Or maybe I'm using my right hand and I'm mostly loaded on my left leg. Maybe I'm using both hands. There's so many different kind of loading patterns that we're going to go through. And as I said, you're spinning around, you're thinking about hand-eye coordination. There's this midline crossing. Anytime my arms, my extremities cross my midline, what it does to the left and the right side of your brain is amazing. And all of that skill, like strength and like stamina, is going to stimulate your cerebellum. So your cerebellum's this tiny little bit of your brain. It's about 10% of your brain, but it's over 50% of your brain's neurons. So when we stimulate the cerebellum, the movement center, the rest of your brain switches on really well. So I'm going to think, learn, remember more efficiently, right? I'm going to be more creative. So if you ever suffer from brain fog, they're the days where you go, I know what I need to do today. I don't need to do a really hard anaerobic circuit. I don't need to do a long distance run. I don't need to do a really heavy strength training session. Would those things help? They definitely wouldn't hurt. But the thing that's going to help you the most is something that's really coordinated. So you take something like martial arts. Martial arts is a great example of an activity that's multi-planar, lots of skills. I've got to react to what the other person's doing, whether they're holding pads or we're sparring. Racket sports, great example. Calisthenics is one of my passions. So very expressive styles of bodyweight exercise, things like the Olympic rings, the aerial silks. They are some of the most valuable training systems that we've ever found. And what's interesting about those more skill-biased types of exercise is they're nearly always the exercise that people that tell me they hate exercise enjoy. So people that don't enjoy gyms, they love Muay Thai kickboxing. People that tell me that they don't like exercise, they come and try the silks and they fall in love. And so when we start to build skill into people's routines, their physical activity kind of sessions, we get back to the fact that chemically, you are hardwired to enjoy being physically active. That's why when you throw a bunch of kids into a playground, they play. You don't have to teach them how to do that, they'll do it. And as we get older, all those horrible bits of society, like worrying about our status and things like that are gonna get in the way sometimes. And so again, it comes back to the dose health method idea of you're in this position where you're worried about failing and you don't want to ask for help and you don't want to be around anybody else. And that's all the stuff that you have to make yourself do. Because when you get help, you're more likely to succeed. You're going to enjoy the process. That's going to transform your energy, your motivation to live a healthier life and avoid some of the bad behaviors, the unhealthy addictions that we have, the habits that we have that we know aren't very good for us. But for a million reasons, they're very hard to walk away from without transforming your behavior. And transforming your behavior takes time, and a lot of time it takes help. So that's a massive factor in it. But so if we recap to the 3 types of exercise you want to think about, strength training, it's amazing for everybody. Antidepressant, it's a very, very powerful intervention for that reason in terms of your own mental health. Stamina, great for when we just feel emotionally, mentally stressed. And the skill stuff, it's good for everybody. Like you could come into the gym on your worst day, and if there's a skill that you've learned, going back to automation, you got to learn this stuff. You got to put yourself into a situation where you've got some tools in your toolbox to pick the right one out based on your mood, right? Because that's our motivation. I don't need to worry about achieving a specific target with my exercise. I just need to turn up and do something that's going to put me in a better mood today. So whilst for all of my experience and all of the evidence we've looked at, developing skill is probably the most rewarding thing you can do for your mental health. Anti-anxiety, when right now there's a lot of people in the world struggling with anxiety, learning something and challenging your body without stress, without a really hard, sweaty, anaerobic workout, without trying to go for a PB or push that 1 rep max, without that physical stress. I can come in and just have some fun, and I can challenge my body, learn some new skills, and leave with this boost of energy. Not just in terms of like hormonal, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins are in a better place, but my circulation's up. So I've got more blood going around my body, oxygen going around my body. I've got rid of, waste products, like lymphatic circulation's gone through the roof. Cerebellum switched on, that movement center of my brain that essentially fires the rest of my brain. You're gonna go and probably have a much more productive day, a much more enjoyable day, and hopefully enjoy better mental health long term. So like I said at the start, if you want to learn more about the mental health map and the dose health method, so that's our holistic health system. It's looking at hormonal health, it's looking at physical health, it's looking at the best ways of incorporating a physical activity routine for you that's just all about making you feel better today. And if we string a lot of days together like that, you're going to be physically healthy, you're going to be hormonally healthy, and I think you're probably going to enjoy some better mental health as well. Obviously on YouTube, you guys can drop comments below. So I'd love to know what you think about this session talking about the mental health map. If you've got any questions, I'll always jump onto our YouTube channel and answer them for you. And if you go to the Wild Training website, you'll find the dose health method, a lot more information on there about that. You can fill in the quiz, we'll send you a load of information and that 7-day challenge and see what difference it makes for you in your life, with your health, your mental health, and get to a better quality of life.